what we always recommend you do first is unpack all the parts, compare them to the instruction sheet list, and make sure you're familiar with the various parts. So you see here, I have them laid out, the various poles, the wire pockets, the tower hubs, all my hardware, I've got it grouped together. We'll go through what that is. And then our tools. What you'll need for this setup, at a minimum, will be the rubber mallet and a Phillips head screwdriver. A bonus would be if you have a power driver to use the Phillips head screws with. It's not necessary. You'll see that as I go through it. Okay. The first thing we want to do is let's build one of the towers first. So that's where we'll use the rubber mallet. I'm going to take part of the wires, the hubs as we call them. We begin with the first hub facing with the guides upward. And those guides are provided so that you can snap the wires in from the side. And I do this on the ground. I press them back into the guide, and then with a little pressure, you heard it plunk down into the tower. I'll do that one more time for you. Make sure, by the way, the pocket opening is facing up at this point. You do not want to build it this way. Push backward into the guides, then down. And you repeat that all the way around this level of the tower. Okay, next we're ready to put the middle hub on it. And in this case, I'm going to turn this hub over and flip it so the guides are pointing down towards the tops of those wires. You'll see why this helps now. I could never hold 6 of these in position without the help of these guides. So one at a time, you place them in the guides. Don't press down yet. I'm going to try to assemble the entire setup like this, working around, letting the guides be my extra sets of hands. You can hear them snap in. Okay, once I've got them lined up, I make sure none have popped out. Take the rubber mallet. I put a little downward pressure to make sure none of them pop out, but I'm going to start helping them on. And here's a good example where one had jumped out. You could tell I wasn't getting anywhere with the mallet, so I'm going to snap it back in and down. And it's important that you work around the whole thing first and just barely tap them down till you know for certain that all 6 of them are in. Now I'm going to go kind of ram it down. And you'll note that when I hit it like this, that the bottom of this run is not on the floor until I tip it. Now I have like a straight rod to the ground. So I like to hear that solid plunk. Every time I turn it on the one I'm hitting, and I hit it till the sound of that plunk changes. Okay, now we're ready to proceed with the upper section of the tower. This time, we're going to put the wires in one at a time so we don't need the guides. Making sure the pocket opening's facing upward, I go one at a time to the tower, line up my holes, press. We don't have to worry about getting it all the way down. The hammering will do that later, just enough to hold it. One more time. Pockets facing upward, get my wires lined up, press. You got to be careful not to press so crazy that you flop this all over the place. Just some nice downward pressure, enough to hold it, and you repeat for the other remaining wires. Okay, to complete this tower, you can guess by now, I'm going to take the top hub. Now I need the guides because I got 6 sets of wires sticking up. One at a time, the same process I did before. Just snap them in, walk it around, snap them in. Everything starts to come in line. Once you feel good about that, don't get too excited with the hammer till you check that all of them are indeed, here's one that was popping out. Little help and it goes right in. Okay, they're all in. Now it's very important that you complete the assembly of this tower with a good firm hammering on each of the 6 rows. And again, I like the tip method. That gives you a solid footing. Work your way around till you get that solid hit. You never have to do it with all your strength, but just do it till you can feel that firmness. And then the final check is a visual. If I built this correctly, all the pockets line up. If I had built it incorrectly, the pockets might be out of line. But you can see by this that they all went together. Okay, I'm going to set the towers aside. We will repeat for the second tower, do the identical process, of course. Now we start to set the base up. Place the base on the floor, grab the lower poles with the flanges and the obvious fit there. Important to grab the correct hardware. In this case, we need the short screws, and we do not need any washers. There's nuts already buried in the base, so these will go right into, you can feel the threading. Always best to start by hand. Make sure we don't cross thread. Get all 3 lined up. Then either use your hand screwdriver to drive them home, or if you're so fortunate, just for speed, each one down. And again, if I were doing it by hand, hand tight is fine with this. There's no need to over crank them. I'm now going to repeat for the second pole the very same way. Okay, next step is, you'll see there's a hole about 6 inches up on each pole. Go back to your hardware kit, get the hitch pins. It's kind of a modified cotter pin. Starts in one side of the pole and must exit the other side. You got to fish for the hole. Once you've lined that up, it snaps in place. This one will be coming towards the camera. I start on the back side, I find the opening, snap it. Very important. The next step is a washer. The washer must go immediately on top of the cotter pin, followed by, on each pole, a bearing. Okay, now we are ready to place the towers onto the poles. Just if I had all the height in the world, I'd build my pole, lift my tower up high and drop it on, but this is a good example here. We've only got a very low, an 8-foot ceiling here, which you might encounter in some stores. So I'm going to show you a way to manage around a low ceiling. The tower, I'm going to take it, tip it because of the low ceiling. The pole has a threaded end on one end, the upper pole does, and an open end. It's the open end you need to point downward through the tower. Look, I'm going to feed it through the tower, and I'm going to send it down till it's almost clear. I want it in the tower right there. Now I would love to, if I had clearance, lift this up over this base, and I don't have it here. So in this case, I'm going to come around this way. Here's even a good way to cheat. If I don't have a second person, I love this handle method. That's going to be my handle to, now watch, tip this base. I tip this base over. Beg your pardon. I have to hold this upper pole in place, treating it like it's part of the tower. If I tip this base over, feed it onto the pole, and walk it up. Another way I could have done it is I could have placed this base on its side on the floor. I actually think that's harder because there wasn't a lot of loose floppy parts. I'm lifting this pole now, fishing it down. I can't let it go till I see it's lined up with the bottom pole there. I do it. Now this becomes my handle for the second tower. It's important that your washer and bearing are on already. I'm going to tip, feed the open end of the upper pole down into this tower. And you have to get it down far enough, depending on your ceiling height. I like to take it, in this case, all the way down till it's almost flush with the top of the pole. Grab the tower here. And this is a great time if you have somebody else, but I'm showing you how you can do it with a single person. I've got this tower ready to go. I'm using this other tower as my handle because this is stable. I'm going to tip it over till I can see that base. Go up on it, clear my ceiling, drop onto the cotter pin. Now, if I dropped this pole at this point and it came out, I'd have to tip it to get it back in. That's why I'm holding it carefully. I get it up till it clears the middle hub. Drop it. That's how you get towers on in an 8-foot setting. The unit's now stable. We're going to put the header plate on to complete it. Before I even take the header plate up, I'm going to take the sign holder, peel the adhesive off, and center it on this thing. Center it left, right, and top to back, right here, because that's where my sign's going to go. Press it. Now I take the 2 remaining screws with washers, and I like to put them through before I attempt to lift up over my head. We're going to thread each one of these into the weighting nut in the top of that pole. I like to do them one at a time. I'm not trying to balance this thing. I just want this screw to find its way in. Got it? And that lets me work one at a time. Now on this one, I may have to move the pole to line it up. I want that screw hitting it in the center, finding its way down. In this case, I'm going to use a hand screwdriver because it's so high. I press it on, tighten, place my sign into the jaws of that sign holder, load the cards, ready to sell.